the Chance began as a stage play. We had a lady in our church, Rose Heinrich, who had an idea for a Christmas production. Every year we do a big stage production, and she brought it to us, and it was like in 40 different scenes and at a ton of different locations, and so we were trying to figure out how to get it to work as a stage play. And so about halfway through that process, we just kind of started asking the questions. So what if we went ahead and did a film with it? And we had done some short films, some different things. We have a sharp video department, and so we just kind of started thinking about doing it. And after a while, we just decided, and praying about it and feeling like that's what we're supposed to do. Still felt we haven't done a short film, anything near, an hour and a half. And so, but really felt like we were supposed to do it. So in true Living Word fashion, we just jumped in the deep end and rolled up our sleeves and started putting it together. We started out with, once again, we were talking about doing a stage production. So once that got nixed and we decided to do a film, we kind of hit the ground running. And so we did as much pre-production as we could possibly do before we had to start filming in order to get everything in the can in time to show for a particular event that we were doing. And so we did pre-production for probably a month, and then started shooting, and we weren't actually finished with pre-production. We still had a lot of stuff to do. So we shot on Saturdays on weekends because that's when our volunteers were available. And during the week, we would be doing the pre-production for the shoot coming up that weekend, as well as editing the stuff shot the weekend before. So we were basically doing pre-production, production, and post-production all at the same time. I believe we had 15 shooting days, somewhere around in there. We shot every weekend. We shot Saturdays for, I believe, 12 weeks. And then we had a couple of Sunday afternoons, like half days, that we shot as well. So we shot the whole thing in around 15 shooting days. The biggest challenge of this project was keeping the vision in front of everybody. Being a pastor, for years and years, one of the things that I realized is that vision leaks. And so you have to continually pump it back into people. And so when people kind of lose a vision for exactly why they're doing and what they're doing, especially when the workload is so big for volunteers and so large for volunteers, but going back to the reason why we're doing it really helps with unity as we're all working together in, with honestly not enough budget for what we're doing and not enough time for what we're doing and all that kind of stuff. It creates a lot of stress if people don't understand. So what's the end goal here? And then also biting off a film for the first time in a church that's never done it. One of the things is there's a question in people's minds of, is this going to be any good? Am I going to be proud to be a part of this, or am I going to be concerned about what it's going to turn out like? So continually instilling vision in people and giving them faith that no, this is going to be good. We're going to make sure that it's good, that kind of thing. Coming up against this, realizing, we got $5,000 that was supposed to go to a stage production, but now we're going to make a full-length feature film with it. Oddly enough, and like I said, sadistically enough, and to the dismay of people helping me, was exciting for me to be able to figure out how to do that. So when we put together a bare bones budget to begin with, it was twice as much as what we had. So then going back through again and telling department heads, okay, so you can't have that equipment, or we're gonna have to figure out some other way to feed them, those kind of things, was was, and it's not always enjoyable telling people you're gonna have to figure out how to do it without, what you feel like you need. But, had conversations with some people and just said, look, it's not like I'm holding on to a bunch of money that I'm just not giving you. It's not there, so we've got to figure out the best that we can do with what we have. And that's my definition of excellence, is doing the best you can with what you have. And so my expectations really had nothing to do with the budget. It had everything to do with what God called us to do and how he was going to grace us and empower us to do it with the amount that he gave us. It's kind of like the loaves and the fishes. One of the things that I always knew was that it was going to be amazing for a $5,000 film. But what was surprising to me is that, that we were compared with films that, where they were, close to $1 million budget. And so that helped me. And, going along the way as an artist and also as a producer, you're constantly wanting, you're constantly looking at and evaluating your project, but you're kind of doing it with a certain filter where it's hard to evaluate your own work. You kind of want other people to look at it and see, but until a film is finished, there's not really a whole lot that that you can do in that manner. So logistically, I know better how to prepare and in pre-production and all that kind of stuff, and just writing and preparing everything as if I was not going to be there, and be able to make any calls that I could walk away and know that if everybody does what we have planned, it'll be fine. Even though when you're on set or you're going to make on the fly calls, but preparing like you're not going to make any. But then going in and that also gives you the freedom to be able to just kind of think and not have to problem solve stuff on set. So logistically, preparing is what I learned from a leadership and a spiritual point of view. One of the things that I come away with is a huge appreciation of people and the people that are willing to follow you into this thing where they're just willing to trust you that that it's going to be halfway decent, and so just a huge appreciation for people and the insane amount of hours and heart that they put into things was huge. And so I just kind of walked away with a real appreciation for people and the volunteers and how much they love their church, how much they love God, and very humbled at how much they're willing to kind of follow me into a fire, so to speak, with just the vision that we're gonna be Jesus' hands and feet in this film. We had a night that we had planned on shooting from dark, which was about 6 o'clock, all the way through midnight. And as soon as we set up and got ready to roll, it began to rain. It was an outdoor scene, and it began to rain. So immediately, all the cast and crew, we had them grab all the props and the set and everything and rush it inside, only to, at that moment, and which we had spent hours and hours, Art had spent hours setting all this up, and as soon as we got it inside, it quit raining. So our whole day, the schedule, everything was kind of shot, and so just piecemealing all that back together and figuring out, okay, so how do we still get this done? Because our shooting schedule was incredibly tight, and we really didn't have time to reschedule this. So going back and resetting everything up in the middle of also trying to think of, okay, so what could we shoot while everybody's resetting up this one scene or these one shots? Can we shoot somewhere else and other shots? And so that was crazy. I think we finished shooting at like 3 or 4 in the morning. But what was amazing was that we had a lot of extras there that night, as well as the cast and the crew, and everybody just kind of jumped in and was a great support, was willing to do whatever needed to be done. I think there were a couple of look back scenes where we kind of see where Peter came from and what had happened between Peter and his father and Angela when they were younger, and that was not in the original script, and so Paolo wanted to kind of do a little bit more to establish who Peter was and why he had become who he is today, and I think that was a pivotal point, and I think that was a great call, because that was a pivotal point where in the film, like you just want to punch this guy in the throat up until that point when you realize, oh, okay, so there was a beginning to that. He wasn't born like this. There was a beginning, and you kind of have a sense of sympathy for him at that point, to realize there's a real human in there somewhere, and that he battles with that. What his father did to him, and the crushing expectations that his father put on him, and I think that those look back scenes to me are kind of the moment when you start to root for him, when you start to really kind of feel something for him and root for him, and I think those were my favorite ones to put together from a pre-production standpoint. Those were a lot of fun to shoot. As far as some of the effects that we did with that, so I think for me that's kind of the moment where everything has to turn for you to actually care about this character and root for him to turn around. I've learned a lot in shooting and producing Another Chance. I don't. I know I have a whole lot more to learn, and I think that's probably the one thing that I would encourage new, filmmakers, producers, that kind of thing, or people even aspiring to, is that there are so many resources to learn online, and different ways to really groom your skills and hone your skills in order to make film. But the biggest one is just to kind of roll up your sleeves and get in there and do it. Make all the mistakes, accidentally do things right intentionally because of what you learned, but then see it actually come to fruition, and the satisfaction in that. I think that's the biggest thing is just to kind of roll up your sleeves, get in there, and do it. That's where you're gonna learn the most. That's where you're gonna realize that all of the classroom learning, if you will, is going to pay off or not pay off. But until you get in there and just do it, then you're not going to learn anything. So jump in and do it.